I never intended to become a billionaire. I just wanted to live long enough to see my daughter graduate. The hospital ceiling was the same washed out white as the papers Victor had placed in front of me, legal documents, a buyout agreement, my company shares for $250,000, a pittance, but enough to cover the experimental treatment insurance wouldn't touch. It's the best I can do, Daniel, Victor said, not meeting my eyes. The company's struggling, you know that. I did know. Tech Fusion was our baby. 5 years of sleepless nights, maxed out credit cards, and endless code. Victor Reeves and I, Daniel Morrison, had built it from nothing in my garage. Now I was signing it away with shaking hands while cancer ate through my body. Just sign here, Victor said. Then you can focus on getting better. I signed. What choice did I have? My daughter Lily was only 16. I needed to live. What Victor didn't know was that I'd backed up everything before my diagnosis. Every line of code, every email, every conversation, every secret. 3 months earlier, life had been normal, good even. I was coding late at the office, surrounded by empty energy drink cans. Our app had just hit 5 million users, not profitable yet, but growing fast. Victor burst through the door, champagne in hand. "We did it, Danny! Microsoft wants to talk acquisition!" We popped the cork, spilling foam across my keyboard. I didn't care. 5 years of ramen dinners and missed birthdays might finally pay off. How much? I asked. They're thinking 50 million, maybe more. We drank straight from the bottle, planning what we'd do with our millions. Victor wanted a yacht. I just wanted to pay off my mortgage and set up Lily's college fund. My ex-wife had left us 3 years ago, and I'd been doing the single dad thing while building a company. To the future, Victor toasted. The headaches started the next day. I blamed the champagne. Then they didn't stop. 2 weeks later, I sat in a doctor's office as she pointed to bright spots on my brain scan. Glioblastoma, she said. It's aggressive. The standard treatment had a 15% survival rate. An experimental therapy in Switzerland offered better odds, but at a cost of $200,000. Insurance denied it immediately. I told Victor that night, "Jesus, Danny, whatever you need, we're family." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? We'd been friends since college, best man at each other's weddings, godfather to each other's children. The Microsoft deal fell through 3 days later. They found issues with our back-end security, Victor explained, looking strangely relieved. They're walking away. I was too sick to question it. The headaches were constant now. Sometimes I couldn't see straight enough to code. Then came the hospital admission, the first surgery, the realization that I couldn't work anymore. "We need to talk about your shares," Victor said, sitting beside my hospital bed. "The company needs a functioning CTO." "I'll get better," I insisted. "The board is pressuring me. We're running out of runway." I didn't know we had a board beyond the two of us. When did that happen? A week later, he returned with the buyout agreement, $250,000 for my 50% stake, the company we'd valued at $50 million during the Microsoft talks. "It's all I could get approved," he said. "The company's future is uncertain without you." I signed it with trembling fingers. The next day, I wired the money to the Swiss clinic. The treatment was brutal. 3 months of experimental drugs and radiation that made standard chemo feel like a day at the beach. I lost my hair, 30 pounds, and most days, my dignity. Lily stayed with me when she could, flying over during school breaks. She'd sit beside my bed doing homework while I drifted in and out of consciousness. "Dad, you've got an email," she said one afternoon, holding up my phone. "From someone at Microsoft." I was too weak to read it, so she did it for me. "They're asking why you haven't responded to their improved offer. 60 million now." The room seemed to tilt. "What offer?" "For Tech Fusion. They say they've been trying to reach you for weeks." I had my daughter bring me my laptop. Each keystroke took enormous effort, but I logged into my old email. Nothing from Microsoft. They must have been contacting Victor directly. With shaking hands, I accessed the backup server I'd set up before my diagnosis, a precaution, a habit from years of paranoid coding. There they were, emails forwarded to Victor's personal account. The Microsoft negotiations had never stopped. He'd lied. More digging revealed board meeting minutes I'd never seen, a new holding company with Victor as sole owner, patent applications with only his name, though we developed the technology together. While I was fighting for my life, Victor was stealing the company. I found a final email, dated 1 week after I'd signed away my shares. Congratulations, Mr. Reeves. Microsoft is pleased to finalize the acquisition of TechFusion for $120 million. The room spun, not from the cancer this time, but from rage so pure it felt like fire in my veins. Dad? Lily's voice sounded far away. Your heart rate monitor is going crazy. I closed the laptop. I'm fine, I lied. Just tired. That night, I made 2 decisions. First, I would survive this cancer. Second, Victor would pay. 6 months later, I was back in the States. The treatment had worked better than anyone expected. Not cured, the doctor was clear about that. But I'd gained time, maybe years. I rented a small apartment and told no one I was back except Lily. As far as the world knew, I was still in Switzerland, likely dying. My first stop was to see Mia Chen, our former lead developer who'd quit a month before my diagnosis. Holy shit, Daniel. She hugged me carefully as if I might break. You look like I had brain cancer? Yeah, I managed to smile. Can we talk? Over coffee, I asked why she'd left TechFusion. Victor was changing, she said, stirring her latte nervously. After the first Microsoft meeting, he started locking people out of parts of the code base. When I questioned him, he said it was for security reasons. What parts? The core algorithm, your algorithm. I nodded. The pattern recognition system I'd developed was what made our app valuable. It predicted user behavior with uncanny accuracy. There's more, Mia said. He brought in these new investors right after you got sick, shady guys. One had ties to data harvesting operations that got shut down in Europe. Did they change the privacy architecture? She nodded. That's why I left. They were collecting data they shouldn't have been. I told Victor it violated our user agreement, maybe even laws. Do you have proof? She slid a flash drive across the table. I made copies before I left, figured someone should have them. I pocketed it. I might need your help, Mia. For what? Justice. My next visit was to Raj Patel, my old college roommate and now a prominent tech lawyer. You should sue, he said after I showed him what I had. Clear breach of fiduciary duty, fraud. And spend years in court while Victor's lawyers drain what little money I have left? I shook my head. Besides, I signed the papers. Under duress, while critically ill. Maybe, but I need something faster and more certain. Raj studied me. What are you thinking, Danny? I'm thinking Victor doesn't know what I backed up, or that I'm feeling better. Be careful, Raj warned. Whatever you're planning, make sure it's legal. I smiled. That's why I'm talking to a lawyer. Over the next weeks, I built my case meticulously. The flash drive from Mia contained enough to prove Victor had deliberately hidden the Microsoft negotiations. My own backups revealed how he'd systematically cut me out while I was getting sicker. But the real gold was in the code changes. After I'd left, Victor had modified my algorithm to collect user data far beyond what our privacy policy allowed. Location tracking, message scanning, browser history. Microsoft wouldn't have touched this with a 10-foot pole if they'd known. It opened them to massive liability. I set up a secure email account and composed a message to Eliza Washington, the Microsoft VP who'd led the acquisition talks. I attached enough evidence to prove what Victor had done, but not everything. Just enough to pique her interest. I'll be at Riverfront Park tomorrow at noon if you want to discuss this further, I wrote, then hit send. Eliza Washington was exactly as I remembered from our initial meetings. Tall, immaculately dressed, with the focused intensity of someone who didn't suffer fools. I assumed you were dead, Mr. Morrison. She sat beside me on the park bench. Victor Reeves certainly hoped so. She opened her tablet. These allegations are serious. They're also provable. The modified code is already running on Microsoft servers. Her face remained impassive, but I caught the slight tightening around her eyes. Tech executives don't like hearing about potential legal nightmares hiding in recent acquisitions. What do you want? Justice. That's not specific enough for this conversation. I handed her a flash drive. This contains everything. The code changes, the hidden negotiations, the fraudulent representation of the company's privacy practices. And in return, Microsoft publicly rescinds the acquisition citing fraud. Victor loses everything, and I get back what's rightfully mine. That's not how acquisitions work. The money's been paid. To a company built on fraud, I countered. Your legal team will have a field day with the contractual violations alone. She pocketed the flash drive. I'll need to verify this. Of course, I'll wait. As she stood to leave, I added, one more thing. Microsoft's reputation matters to you. Imagine the headlines if it comes out that you're harvesting data illegally from millions of users. Her eyes narrowed. Is that a threat? Just an observation. I'd prefer to keep this between us, but I've prepared for all contingencies. After she left, I sat watching the river. For the first time since my diagnosis, I felt like myself again. Not just a cancer patient, not a victim, but Daniel Morrison, the guy who built something valuable enough to steal. 3 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. We've verified your information, Eliza said without preamble. Our legal team is preparing to void the acquisition. Good. But we want the technology, the original algorithm, not the compromised version. That can be arranged. And we want you to come on as a consultant during the transition. I hadn't expected that. Why? Because you built it, Mr. Morrison, and because we don't trust Victor Reeves to cooperate once we drop this bomb on him. We hammered out details. Microsoft would announce they were rescinding the acquisition due to material misrepresentations discovered during post-acquisition review. They'd file suit against Victor personally, and they'd work with me to reconstruct the original privacy-compliant version of the software. When does this happen? I asked. Tomorrow morning. I suggest you be ready. I hung up and called Lily. Hey, sweetheart, can you skip school tomorrow? There's something I need to show you. We sat in my car outside Victor's house the next morning, the same house he'd bought with my company's money, 6 bedrooms for his family of 3, a pool, a 3-car garage that currently held his Ferrari. Why are we stalking your old business partner? Lily asked, sipping the coffee I'd bought her. At 17, she looked more like her mother every day, but she had my stubborn chin and analytical mind. Just watch. At precisely 9 a.m., Victor's phone must have started ringing. We saw him appear at the upstairs window, phone to his ear. Even from a distance, his body language shifted from casual to rigid in seconds. What's happening? Lily asked. Microsoft is informing him they're canceling the acquisition and suing him for fraud. Her eyes widened. Because of what he did to you? Because of what he did to the company, to our users, to Microsoft. I smiled. And yes, because of what he did to me. Victor disappeared from the window. Minutes later, his front door burst open. He ran to his car, still wearing what looked like pajama bottoms with a hastily thrown-on dress shirt. As he backed out of the driveway, his phone rang again. He answered, then suddenly slammed on the brakes so hard we could hear the tires squeal. That's probably his bank, I said, informing him his accounts have been frozen pending investigation. Dad, Lily said slowly, what did you do? I protected what was ours. Victor got out of his car, screaming into his phone. He didn't notice us parked down the street, didn't notice anything except his world collapsing. My phone buzzed with a text from Raj. It's done. Judge granted the emergency injunction, all company assets frozen. I started the car. Let's go. That's it? Lily asked. We just watch him freak out and leave? The rest happens in boardrooms and courtrooms. I pulled away from the curb. And I have somewhere else to be. Tech Fusion's office looked exactly as I'd left it almost a year ago. Same open floor plan, same cheap furniture we'd bought from a startup that went bankrupt, same whiteboard where I'd sketched the original algorithm. Mia met us at the door, keycard in hand. "They haven't changed the security system," she said with a grin. "Idiots." Inside, developers huddled in confused groups. Nobody was coding. All eyes turned to us as we entered. "Is that Daniel? Holy shit." I walked to the center of the room. These people had been my colleagues. Some were friends. All had been told I was dying overseas. "Morning, everyone," I said. "I believe you've been expecting Microsoft executives today. They're running a bit late. They had to make a stop at Victor's house first." Confused murmurs rippled through the room. "What's going on?" asked Trevor, our marketing lead. "Microsoft has rescinded their acquisition of Tech Fusion due to fraudulent representations made by Victor Reeves." The room erupted. Questions flew from all directions. I held up my hands. "I know you have questions. Here's what you need to know. Victor altered our core technology to collect user data illegally. He hid Microsoft's interest from me while I was ill, then bought my shares at a fraction of their value. Microsoft discovered this and has filed suit against him personally." "What happens to us?" someone asked. "To the company." "That's being determined, but I'm back and I'm working with Microsoft to salvage what we built." A slow clap started from the back of the room, Mia. Then others joined in. These were people who'd worked alongside me for years, who'd seen how sick I'd gotten, who'd watched Victor change after I left. The front door slammed open. Victor stood there, face flushed, tie askew. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, eyes locking on me. "You're supposed to be in Switzerland." "I got better," I smiled. "You look stressed, Victor." He stormed toward me. "You did this. You sabotaged everything." "No, Victor, you did this. I just exposed it." He lunged at me, but Trevor and two other developers stepped between us. "You ungrateful bastard," Victor spat. "I saved this company after you got sick. I made it valuable enough for Microsoft." "You stole it," I corrected, "and you corrupted it. You signed the papers while dying of brain cancer after you lied about Microsoft walking away." I stepped closer. "Not your finest moment, old friend." Security arrived then, not company security, but actual police officers, accompanied by a woman in a sharp suit who introduced herself as representing Microsoft's legal team. "Victor Reeves," she said, "we have some matters to discuss." As they led him away, still shouting threats and justifications, I felt no satisfaction, just a hollow sort of completion, the circle closing. Lily squeezed my hand. "You okay, Dad?" "Getting there." The lawsuit settled 6 months later. Victor avoided criminal charges by cooperating fully. Microsoft restructured their acquisition, this time with me involved. The valuation, $2.4 billion, after our user base tripled following privacy improvements and new features. My share came to just over $800 million after taxes and legal fees. Victor lost everything: his reputation, his fortune, his future in tech. Last I heard, he'd moved to Arizona to sell real estate. I bought a modest house near Lily's University, set up a research foundation focused on glioblastoma treatment, funded scholarships for young coders from disadvantaged backgrounds. The cancer returned 18 months later. More aggressive this time. The doctors gave me 6 months. I called Mia, who'd stayed on as CTO after the acquisition. "Remember that pattern recognition algorithm?" "Your baby?" "Of course. I've been adapting it for medical research, cancer mutation prediction. It's promising." "Send it over. I'll help." We worked remotely, me coding between treatments. On good days, I could work for hours. On bad days, Lily would read research papers to me while I dictated notes. 3 months in, we had a breakthrough. The algorithm predicted treatment responses with 78% accuracy. Not a cure, but a tool to help doctors choose the most effective approach for each patient. Microsoft's medical division fast-tracked development. Clinical trials began 4 months later. I lived to see Lily graduate college, lived to see her get her first job at a biotech firm, lived to see our algorithm approved by the FDA and implemented in hospitals nationwide. The night before my second brain surgery, Victor came to visit, older, humbler, broken in ways money couldn't fix. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, standing awkwardly at my bedside. "Good, because I don't have any to give." He nodded. "Fair enough. Why are you here, Victor? To say you won." He looked around the hospital room, though it doesn't look much like winning from where I'm standing. I laughed, which hurt my surgical scars. "You think this is about winning?" "Isn't it? You took everything from me." "No, Victor, you took everything from yourself." I adjusted my bed to sit straighter. I just exposed the truth, and became a billionaire in the process. Money I'm using to save lives, including my own, hopefully. He had no response to that. "The algorithm you stole," I continued, "it's helping cancer patients now. That's winning, Victor, not the money, not destroying you, making something that matters." After he left, Lily arrived with dinner. "Was that Victor I passed in the hall? What did he want?" "To see if I'm still angry. Are you?" I considered the question. The rage that had fueled me after discovering Victor's betrayal had burned out long ago, replaced by something calmer, not forgiveness, just perspective. "No," I said finally. "I'm just alive. That's enough." The next morning, they wheeled me into surgery. I wasn't afraid. The algorithm gave me a 62% chance of full recovery, better odds than I'd had the first time around. As the anesthesia took hold, I thought about the backup server that had saved everything, the precaution that had preserved my future. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's outliving the betrayal, creating something meaningful from the ashes of what was lost. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's waking up to find you've been given another day, another chance, another beginning. Which is exactly what I did.